Sadreddin Shirazi, known as Mulla Sadra, the prominent Iranian Shi'i Muslim philosopher of the 17th century, synthesized three major intellectual traditions in Islamic thought. That is, the Masha'i or peripatetic philosophy, the Ishraqi or illuminationist mysticism, and Kalam, that is, Islamic theology. By synthesizing these traditions, Mulla Sadra provides a holistic metaphysical framework where existence is an ascending process of becoming, linking the physical world to the divine reality. He famously introduced the revolutionary theory of the substantial motion, ḥaraka jawhariyya. This theory, fundamental in his transcendental theosophy or hikmat al-muta'aliyya, challenges Aristotelian and peripatetic views by proposing that motion is not limited to accidents, but extends to the very substance of reality itself, to existence. What does this mean? How does he outline his theory? What is the relationship between the soul and body in this framework? What implications does this theory have about life? Let us discuss these questions. Before Mulla Sadra, philosophers such as Aristotle, Ibn Sina, Suhrawardi conceptualized motion as the change of something from one state to another, that is, a potentiality becoming actualized. Motion was limited to accidental categories like movement from one place to another, that is, local motion, changes in quality, qualitative motion, alteration in quantity, quantitative motion, and rearrangement, that is, positional motion. This traditional view assumes that a thing's substance, or jawhar in Arabic, remains constant and that only its external properties change. In contrast, Mulla Sadra's philosophy, grounded in the primacy of existence or asalat al-wujud, radically overturns this idea by asserting that even substance itself is in a continuous motion. In this framework, reality is not static, but a process of constant becoming. The substantial nature of physical things is never at rest, but constantly evolving. Every material entity undergoes continuous transformation at the level of essence or thought. The theory of substantial motion aligns with Sadra's ontology, in which existence is a graded reality. That is, the gradational unity of existence, tashkik al-wujud, which I will not be elaborating here as I have already dedicated an entire video for that concept. If substance itself is at motion, then species, like natural kinds, are not rigid. Over time, entities may transform from one substantial form to another. What implications does this theory have for the relationship between human soul and body? Of how the soul and body relate has become a fundamental issue in philosophy, from Plato to Aristotle to Ibn Sina and later Islamic thinkers. Classical views often emphasized a dualistic perspective, treating the soul as an independent entity that merely uses the body. However, through substantial motion, Mulla Sadra asserts that the soul and body are dynamically linked through an ontological process of becoming. Mulla Sadra agrees with Aristotle's idea that the soul is a form of the body, but modifies it. Unlike Aristotle, who saw the soul-body relationship as static, Mulla Sadra argues that the soul itself is dynamic and ever-changing. The soul begins as a physical form, but becomes increasingly spiritual. Unlike philosophers who argued that the soul pre-exists the body, Mulla Sadra asserted that the soul is not separate from the body at the beginning. Rather, it emerges as a material entity. It starts as a potentiality, that is quwwa, embedded in matter and gradually actualizes its intellectual and spiritual capacities. The soul is initially dependent on the body, but as it matures, it moves beyond the bodily dependence, evolving into an immaterial intellectual entity. Through substantial motion, the soul moves through progressive stages of existence, undergoing a qualitative transformation. At the first stage, It is the vegetative soul, nafs nabatiyya. At its earlier stage, the soul functions like a plant, concerned only with growth and nutrition, that is, basic biological functions, and physical survival without higher awareness. At this level, humans are indistinguishable from plants. Their souls operate only at a biological level. The second stage is the animal soul, nafs haywaniyya. As the soul develops, it acquires sensory and emotional capacities, resembling animals. At this stage, it perceives the world through the five senses, experiencing pleasure and pain. It develops instincts and desires such as fear, hunger, and reproduction. It engages in basic reasoning, but primarily driven by instinct rather than intellect. Many people remain at this level, governed primarily by sensory pleasures and emotional impulses. The third stage is the rational soul, nafs natiqa. Through intellectual development and self-discipline, the soul enters its rational phase, characterized by abstract thinking and reasoning, moral awareness and ethical reflection, self-control over desires, capacity for higher knowledge, including metaphysical and philosophical inquiry. At this level, the soul transcends the purely physical realm and begins to interact with the higher immaterial realities. Stage 4 is the intellective soul, that is, nafs aqliya. Through further intellectual, ethical, and spiritual refinements, the soul reaches a higher level of consciousness characterized by direct apprehension of truth beyond sense perception, understanding universal concepts such as justice, beauty, and metaphysical realities, detachment from material limitations, self-awareness as an independent, immaterial entity. This is the stage of philosophers, saints, and spiritual masters who move beyond mere intellectual reasoning into direct existential realization. Stage 5 is the pure soul, nafs mujarrada. At its highest level, the soul transcends all material and rational constraints, becoming fully immaterial and unified with the pure existence. At this level, it no longer relies on body for knowledge. It exists in a state of complete intellectual and spiritual fulfillment and unites with the divine. Therefore, the final goal of substantial motion is to transform the soul from a materially dependent entity into a fully immaterial being. Importantly, the transformation of the soul through substantial motion is not automatic. Knowledge and intellectual growth, learning, reflection, and philosophical reasoning accelerate the soul's movement from potentiality to actuality. Higher levels of understanding lead to deeper spiritual insights. Ethical self-purification or tazkiyah. Controlling desires and emotions refine the soul's existential purity. Virtues such as justice, patience, and humility strengthens the soul's immaterial nature. In contrast, moral corruption, selfishness, and ignorance weakens the soul and hinders its transformation. Spiritual practices. Prayer, meditation, and remembrance of God, called dhikr, elevates the soul beyond the rational level. Mystical experiences facilitate direct access to higher realities. Thus, intellectual, ethical, and spiritual efforts work together to transform the soul. A major implication of Mulla Sadra's view is that death is not an abrupt separation of the soul from the body. Instead, the soul gradually detaches from bodily limitations as it ascends existentially. A person who has cultivated knowledge and virtue will have a more developed, independent soul, spiritually journeying even after death. In contrast, a person who has not developed their soul remains trapped in a lower state of being, leading to spiritual stagnation in the afterlife. Mulla Sadra's substantial motion not only explains how the soul evolves in this life, but also accounts for the resurrection and the afterlife. Unlike philosophers who argued for a purely spiritual afterlife, Mulla Sadra asserts that the soul, through substantial motion, acquires an immaterial body that corresponds to the spiritual state. This means that heaven and hell are existential states, not merely places. A spiritually developed soul will exist in a luminous paradisal realm, while a neglected soul will experience darkness and suffering. Every action, thought, and intention shapes the existential quality of the soul. Good actions refine the soul, making it lighter and more capable of ascending. Evil actions, on the other hand, burden the soul, making it heavy and incapable of reaching higher planes. Thus, substantial motion explains why individuals experience different afterlives based on their existential developments. Mulla Sadra's theory of the substantial motion provides a philosophical middle ground between the materialistic perspective, which see consciousness as a product of the body, and mystical and religious views, which treat the soul as purely material and detached from the body. Sadra's theory shows that the soul is neither purely material nor purely immaterial, but undergoes a dynamic transformation. The body is not a prison for the soul, but a necessary starting point for its development. So, what is the takeaway? Mulla Sadra's theory of the substantial motion revolutionizes our understanding of the soul-body relationship, offering a profound vision of the soul as an evolving reality, constantly moving towards perfection. A journey that begins in the body, but transcends it through intellectual, ethical, and spiritual development. I hope through this video I could shed some light on this groundbreaking theory. If you're interested to learn more about Mulla Sadra, specifically his gradational unity of existence doctrine, I invite you to watch our video dealing with this topic. It is foundational to understanding the substantial motion theory. Thank you for watching. See you next time.